Hi everyone, my name's Roz. I am the director of Sheffield Harmony, and I'm here with Helen Warner, who's the director of Viva a Cappella, as part of Region 31's Director on Director Conversations. So, hi Helen.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Yeah. Still
Excellent.
adjusting to this new normal.
Yes, very much so. Um, so, Helen, you and I have known each other for quite a few years now.
Yeah, it must be going on. Well, we must be about 6 years because that's how long I've been with Viva, and that's when I first
Yeah,
met you. Yeah, so 6 years.
yeah, possibly even slightly longer because I know that we met at a random barbershop convention as you do before you actually joined Viva. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely still remember very well you kind of first coming to sing for Viva with Patchwork, I think it was at the time.
Yeah.
And then I think your first sing out was one that I was directing at,
It was a
was it
Christmas
a
one.
Blue Water
It
or
was a
something
Blue
like
Water
that?
shopping
Yeah.
centre, yes. And then they had that giant snow globe that we got
Yeah,
into afterwards.
I remember you'd only just joined, but luckily, I mean, you were singing lead, so you
Yeah, you were
just
like,
thought,
just sing the melody of
it'll be
these
fine.
Christmas songs and it'll be fine. So I did.
First thing out straight in as a brand new member. But
Of course.
yeah. So, Helen, do you want to tell us a bit about kind of how you got into barbershop and your journey to being Viva's newly appointed director?
Sure, I can. I first discovered barbershop at university. I went to the University of Bristol and joined the University of Bristol Barbershop Singers, Tubbs, as many of you have heard before, I'm sure, and never looked back. So I went to uni in 2011 and I joined straight away, and spent 2 years as their vice president and 2 years directing different ensembles with them. So I caught the bug very much at university. I even started some sort of quartet singing there, and that's where I first met Patchwork Boys, and Patchwork was my first competing quartet. So Patchwork was a mixed quartet with three others who I met in Tubbs, and we competed in 2013 at Lab's Mixed Quartet Contest. That was the first time I'd ever done any competing, and obviously I have not stopped since. So we won the gold, which was very exciting, but also like made in Tubbs I made a lot of lifelong friends and connections, and obviously
Who are
now,
now my friends
yeah.
too.
And now sing with them still. I'm engaged to one. I've lived with some for a while, so it like Tubbs started it all for me. And then when I graduated, I got a job in London and moved in with two friends who were also Tubbs alumni. And one of them was Carly, who sang with Viva a Cappella. And I made the connection there, came along to Viva a Cappella, as you said, to sing with Patchwork first. We were singing out
Yeah,
on a convention set, and loved it, especially the bass sound. As you the bass sound was
I'll take a little
amazing, and
bit
I
of
was
credit for
like,
that.
whoa. And but it was really busy time, and I remember I was competing with Patchwork getting ready for labs, and I was like, I can't join Viva until I've got a bit more time on my hands. I'll wait till after labs. But yeah, the week after labs finished, I was there ready. So yeah, that's how I got to Viva. Joined, became section leader after a few months, tried the front row, did a bit of choreo and performance stuff. And then when you left Viva to go up north, an assistant MD position became available, and I think at the time thought I was being incredibly bold with my lack of experience, said to Gaynor, who was our director at the time, I'd kind of be interested in getting a bit of directing experience. And she was like, great, you're our new assistant director. And then took over from there, and now am the full MD. So
I
that's
think that's
kind of
often the way,
me in
though,
a
isn't it? That
nutshell.
you kind of yeah, I think a lot of new directors could relate to that you don't think you've got enough experience, but you just sort of have to go for it and learn on the job a bit.
Yes, very, and I very much did. Luckily, I have been learning under some very talented people, so managed to pick up a lot quite quickly. But yeah, it's been a bit odd being appointed director on Zoom because obviously it happened in June, so I
Yeah.
haven't had like the full time directing experience out front in person yet. But I'm excited for when we can get to that point. Yeah. But you started your barbershop journey with Viva, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So I'd always sung through school and uni. And then it was actually around the same time that you found Barbershop, so 2011. February 2011, I went on holiday to Tenerife with my boyfriend at the time. And we happened to bump into four girls in Tenerife, roughly our age, and three of them sang Barbershop. And we just got chatting over sangria, as you do. And basically discovered that I sang, and they were telling me all about the barbershop world and Viva a cappella. And we worked out that actually we didn't live that far away from each other back in the UK. So basically spent the rest of that week kind of socializing with them. My boyfriend and their friend who didn't sing were very patient with us. And we sang together a bit on holiday. Luckily, they were a tenor, a lead, and baritone from Viva a cappella. And I've always sung lower parts, so I naturally fitted into the bass. They gave me some music to sight read, and we just sang together on holiday. And I was kind of hooked from there. It was quite a strange experience. They were just gearing up for convention that year, and they sang me some of their contest songs in three parts, and that is quite a weird experience. I think they sang Shangri-La to me, which is a 6-part arrangement, 6 or 7, can't remember, that Viva do, and again 3 parts of that was quite strange, but yeah, you get the barbershop bug, as you say. So we flew back from Tenerife on the Tuesday, and I went along to the Thursday rehearsal and never left, basically, until I moved up to Sheffield. So
straight down to business.
So that was February 2011 I joined Viva.
And then you were assistant MD at Viva, but
so
added on some directorships before you went up north, didn't you?
That's right. It was kind of a gradual process. So I didn't compete with Viva that first year. As I said, I joined in the February before the May convention. But by the time we got to the next year, I was already bass section leader. And then we won that year. So I was definitely hooked and definitely kind of booked into going to Hawaii for our first international in 2013. And then, became assistant director. And that was kind of an organic process. I'm not sure it was ever really like officially decided, but there were a few sing outs. And I think this often happens in choruses. There are a few sing outs that the director can't make and you just need someone to stand in. So I started off that way doing some kind of Christmas sing outs, and then became actual assistant director. And then I can totally relate to what you're saying about not feeling prepared, and
imposter syndrome
is huge in directors, I think, a lot, and that's something that I think often members don't realize that there's definitely a crisis of confidence sometimes, but particularly new directors, but even after years of experience, I think a lot of directors feel that as well. You feel a huge responsibility to your members, and kind of often starting out, I think you feel the need to justify your position a bit. But that definitely happened when I took on my first actual directorship. So another chorus locally, Green Street Blues, who are a lads chorus, had been advertising for a director, and I'd not even considered it, to be honest. And then one of my barbershop friends, who was actually a previous director, basically said, "What about it?" And I actually laughed at him because I thought, no, I'm not ready for a real musical director position. But I applied, and they were a great kind of learning mechanism for me. And they were very patient and encouraging with a brand new director. Obviously, I'd had a bit of experience as assistant director at Viva, but the two of them combined, kind of really took me onwards.
And taking on the frontline position is quite different from filling in at the odd kind of sing out that Gaynor couldn't make, that kind of thing, isn't it?
Very much so, yeah. And I think also you don't appreciate before you're in that role that being a director is about so much more than just waving your arms out the front. It's, you have all of that kind of chorus management stuff. Obviously, you have a committee or a management team doing that stuff as well, but I've always thought it's so important for a director to get really kind of stuck in with that stuff, so that you have a common vision for the chorus. And people management is a huge part of it, which I think you don't necessarily appreciate before you're in that role.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely about more than just waving your arms.
But of course, this opportunity came up to be a director with Sheffield Harmony. So how did that come about?
It was just one of those occasions where sort of everything falls into place at once. So I'd been thinking for a little while that, maybe London wasn't for me long term, couldn't really afford the quality of life I wanted there. And also spending half my time basically driving north for rehearsals. So Nightfall and Scandal would both tend to do, when we could meet up, tend to do sort of one weekend a month. And that was a sort of 4.5 hour drive each way, for a weekend's rehearsal, 2 weekends a month. So it was quite taxing really. And then the rest of the time I was driving out of London to get to Kent for Viva and Green Street Blues. So I realised that it wasn't really worth paying the London price tag when you aren't spending any of your time there. And then, I heard that there was an upcoming vacancy at Sheffield Harmony, and I'd been thinking, as I said, of sort of relocating, and it just sort of all fell into place. My work, my role at work was changing a bit at the time, and it ended up that I could relocate to an office in Sheffield. So it just kind of happened. It was a really difficult decision actually, because Viva meant so much to me for my first 7 years in Barbershop, 7.5 years by that point. And I was kind of really reluctant to leave there, but I knew that, I had enough connections, and we'd also just won, well, not won, but we'd qualified for a place at International. So I moved in 2018 when we had just got the silver medal in Region 31 in May. So we qualified to go to New Orleans. No, sorry. Yeah, we got the May previous year, 2017. I'm getting my dates mixed up. 2017, we qualified for International, which meant that we were going to be competing.
No, you were right.
No, I was
May
right.
2018, Viva got the silver.
Right. Okay.
Qualified for 2019.
May 2018, we got silver, so we qualified for New Orleans 2019. So when I was moving autumn 2018, I knew that there was already this opportunity to still sing with Viva, basically for the next year.
Yeah.
And kind of agreed that with Gaynor before I left. So that made the transition a bit easier.
Yeah, a little bit of overlap time. We kept you as an Uta for a while, which is great. And then, of course, the following May, you got your Nightfall gold medal and qualified to compete in the internationals with Nightfall as well in the same year. So what was being on the international stage with a quartet like?
Oh, it was amazing. I loved it. Actually, I thought it would be really scary. I mean, you'll have your own experience with this, because I know Patchwork competed in the World Mix, didn't you? But the kind of big, scary Sweet Adeline stage at International, luckily, I think I'd already had 2 international experiences with Viva before that. So I had some idea of how that would feel. But it is a very different experience in quartet. But actually, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, and I felt a lot more relaxed on the stage than I thought I would. I think part of that is that they have a carpeted stage, and that just made me feel like we were rehearsing in my living room, except someone had taken one of the walls off and you had all these people out there.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone explain it like that before. That's funny.
But yeah, it was really special for me that my first time competing internationally in quartet, Viva were there, because you're very much my Barbershop family. And being able to share that week with the 2 and having all of your support when we were competing was really lovely. It was quite stressful trying to balance kind of the requirements of both. And there's that, wanting to split yourself in 2 so that you can go and hang out with your friends or hang out with your quartet mates while there's something else going on. But yeah, it was really wonderful as a first experience out there.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So here we are, 2020.
I was about to say we should probably start talking a bit more about directing now.
It's thrown a bit of a curveball at us, hasn't it?
Yeah. So Helen, for you, So it's been, obviously, from my perspective, it's been lovely kind of watching your development through your journey with Viva, and taking on choreography type stuff, and then into assistant director stuff. And then so Gaynor left at the end of last year.
She did, yeah. So her
Um,
last rehearsal was our last one in 2019.
yeah. And then so you had then Doug take over for a short while pre-lockdown.
Yep.
And then when lockdown happened, I know as assistant director, a lot of the technological side and stuff was falling to you to kind of run rehearsals. How did that feel to you? Talk me through that kind of transition from that role and then into actually being appointed director.
Yeah, well, when we first kind of had Doug appointed as our director and he started in January this year, he was 3 out of every 4 weeks he was down with us. So I got a bit more of a chance to be out front with Viva as the assistant director on the fourth of those weeks. So I kind of started building up a little bit of my out front experience, and then lockdown hit. And the very last rehearsal, in fact, in March that everyone had together, I wasn't at because I was with Avalon for the day and it was a weekend rehearsal. And then lockdown hit and everybody kind of went online. We had a couple of weeks trying to decide what to do, and it kind of looked like it might go on a few weeks at that time, and all of the kind of fellow barbershop choruses that we knew were moving on to Zoom. So we purchased our Viva Zoom membership and set up an account. But kind of one of the ways to make things easier with that was Doug and I, we planned rehearsals together, but obviously he was still running them in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do a lot of the behind the scenes, sorting out the tech, making sure it worked, screen sharing, spotlighting, all that kind of thing. Very much making it up as I went along, as were a lot of people, I'm sure. Yeah, everyone kind of sharing their guidance across Facebook and emails and everything while we tried to work out how to make it work. And then Doug's situation changed basically, and he decided to move back home to the US. And we kind of didn't want to go on a director search while we were in lockdown. It didn't make sense not to see someone out front of the chorus. But I'm lucky that the chorus had kind of enough faith in me that they appointed me interim director at the time.
Faith in you and experience of you. I mean, by that point, they had experienced you out front, and you'd been assistant director under 2 different directors. So
yes, and they'd had me out front a bit more, certainly at the beginning of the year, and then. So we kind of changed tack, I guess, around the time that I took over, which was early June. It was becoming quite apparent that this was going to be a long-term thing, having all been kind of working week by week and looking forward to when we'd be back together. And then, so we kind of had a very frank discussion in the chorus. We even ran a bit of a survey to find out what people wanted to be doing during this time and kind of working out what people's priorities were and how to get through this time together. And we kind of came to the conclusion that essentially one of the most important things obviously was the social connection and people just being able to touch base, and that as a competition chorus our usual sort of approach is quite high commitment levels that we expect from people, and a certain amount of attendance and that kind of thing. And actually the most important thing was, we're here if you need us, but we're aware that some people log on to Zoom at 8 a.m. in the morning and they're there until the rehearsal that evening, and they just can't face another 2.5 hours of Zooming.
Yep.
And that is completely fair enough. So as much as we kind of would love to be able to have everybody there every week, it was quite important that we changed our rhetoric essentially to, we want to know you're okay. So if we're checking in on you, we're not like monitoring your attendance, we're just making sure you're okay.
Yeah.
And we built in a lot more sort of sessions that were just social sessions or games or fun things to do, or like recapping old stuff, and then tried to make the focus a lot more on what we could do than what we were missing out on, which I think was a really important kind of change. And rather than desperately trying to work on our contest set, because we didn't know how long it would go on and whether May 2021 would be happening and whether we needed to work towards that, which of course we now know it isn't. But we kind of were doing the contest songs to death, which is very weird when you're the only person, you can only hear yourself at home and things. And so actually we've changed our tack a lot, and we've had loads of really amazing education and coaching sessions from people from America, and Sweet Adeline's faculty, and Canada, and sort of various people come and visit us from all over the place. People that we probably would never have had come and coach us do really awesome education sessions, which has been great. And we've had in-house education sessions. You know, we've had our very own top 10 bass Sophie Hassan has been doing a session on coning sound, and we've had, you know, one of our members did a session on breath plans and all sorts of things. We've done kind of analyses of our contest notes, which has been really good. And one of the things that the chorus said they wanted to do was learn new repertoire. So I think we're probably learning over the next few months, we're planning on learning more than we necessarily would do in that kind of time frame normally, because learning new music has this kind of sense of achieving things at the end of it. You're getting off music, you're getting notes and words down. And then we've, you know, jumped on the bandwagon and done a couple of virtual projects as well. Well, we had one that we put out back in, I think it was August time, back in the summer anyway. We did a virtual recording of our very own bespoke arrangement of Shenandoah, which is a beautiful gift from Sam Hubbard. And we have a Christmas one in the works that will release the week before Christmas as well. So that's quite fun. So it's been a kind of basically a big change of approach to rehearsals. You do have to focus on what you can do and what people are willing to do, and just being there for people basically. And the kind of pressure needs to be off so that people can choose what they can commit to at the moment. And yeah, making that change has been really helpful. I think actually, you know, people, when they do come, they get a bit of a boost, because sometimes, especially now we're in lockdown 2.0, some just touching base with people and having a bit of a sing in any context is really nice. So yeah, we've done a lot of kind of changing the plan and focusing on what we can do, which I presume you have been doing similarly with Sheffield. What's been going on up north? Up north.
Up north. I can't do accents. That was.
Me
Please
neither.
nobody be offended by that. Yeah, I mean, so we were very lucky actually at the start of the first lockdown. We rehearsed on Monday, so we actually got one extra rehearsal, which most other choruses I think didn't when they rehearsed later in the week. So we kind of looked ahead and realised the way that things were going, and very fortuitously decided to sing and record our whole repertoire on that Monday evening, just in case. That has proved an absolute godsend. Unfortunately, we didn't also have the foresight to record our live Christmas repertoire, so I'm now trying to piece together, you know, decent recordings to sing along to on Zoom. But yeah, that was well, a great kind of final rehearsal, really kind of uplifting in worrying times, but also set us up really well for the Zooming experience. And we launched straight into it with the Zoom rehearsals. So the following week we were on Zoom. I basically spent the rest of that week researching as much as I could, finding out as much as I could from directors in America in particular. Loads of Sweet Adeline's directors in America were posting kind of lengthy explanations about their initial foray into the Zoom rehearsal experience, and that was just absolutely invaluable. I think I was really keen to get it going as quickly as possible and make it as easy as possible for people to engage. I think a lot of my membership are, they won't mind me saying this, slightly more mature than some of Viva's members. And there was a lot of worry right at the beginning about COVID, and there still is, of course. I think we've just kind of got a bit more used to that background level of worry now. Yeah. But I was very conscious that, you know, I didn't want my members to feel isolated. I didn't want them to feel any disconnect from the chorus, because we are as much a group of friends as we are a group of performers. As you mentioned, that social side is so important. And I think I felt very strongly as a director that duty of care to the members. And you very much take on this kind of pastoral side as well as the musical leadership side. So yeah, I mean, lots of the similar things that you've talked about. I'm sure everyone watching has had their own Zoom rehearsals, so I won't kind of, dwell on the details again. But it's, yeah, very much been, I think, a different challenge for directors in this time. I don't know about you, but I have found that it takes a lot more time and effort planning a Zoom rehearsal than it did an in-person rehearsal.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that's to do with not getting that immediate feedback as well. Because we
Definitely.
often do a lot of kind of reactive directing, don't we?
So many of the skills that we have worked on and developed as directors are suddenly redundant.
Yeah.
The whole waving your arms stuff, listening to the chorus, identifying issues, kind of making tweaks, that kind of stuff you just can't do when you're singing along to a recording that is set in stone. I mean,
yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of directors were really out of our comfort zones initially, but it's our responsibility to make it work and to adapt and do the best for our membership. So yeah, definitely having to make Zoom rehearsals as varied as possible, keeping the interest going. I can totally relate to what you were saying about some members being on Zoom all day or staring at screens all day for work and then not wanting to be on Zoom of an evening. And I definitely feel that. I spend all day looking at a screen. But I think for me, it's actually really helped having that duty of care to the membership, because it's forced me to engage with it and keep enjoying it, because I've had to come up with things to make them enjoy it, which means that I'm naturally going to enjoy it as well. And yeah, you can have a really long day at work, staring at a screen, have a little break for dinner, which is quite a luxury, when you don't have a commute, so you have a bit more time to do those sort of things. But then logging back on, even if I don't feel like it at the beginning of an evening, I find that kind of having to rally their spirits actually has that impact on me as well.
Yeah, I have to admit, I have been guilty of being like, ugh, really? And then I go on and I'm like, that's why I did it. That's why I logged on tonight.
Yeah. I think it would be really easy though for people to think that directors have an easy job on Zoom, and I just want to say your directors really don't. It does take a lot of preparation, takes a lot of planning, and it's totally different experience running a rehearsal on Zoom. I think you mentioned with the contest songs, when you've got all of your chorus muted and just trying to gauge their reactions by whether they're looking at the screen or whether they seem to be, pulling a face or whatever's going on, and only hearing your voice through some of the rehearsal. I think a turning point for us was getting some of the membership involved in running rehearsals or running different sessions. Now, you said you've had in-house education sessions, and then they get to experience that. And I find that the people who've done that are then a lot more visually responsive when you're running a session in rehearsal, because they know what it feels like to have people just sort of staring at a screen. So I've taken to doing lots of actually a lot of the tricks that I use with the youth chorus I've taken to using with my adult chorus as well. So lots of kind of, okay, give me a thumbs up, or how did you do, give yourself a rating and that sort of stuff, just to get some kind of visual feedback, some kind of engagement, make sure they haven't fallen asleep at their seats, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course. So one of the strings to your bow, which has many strings, is we haven't talked about you taking on Lab's youth chorus. So tell us a little bit about taking on the youth chorus first, and then tell us how that's been on Zoom as well.
Yeah, so I have always thought of myself as a British barbershop, but not necessarily affiliated to one or other organisation. So I go to all the Labs and Babs conventions, and I go to the Region 31 conventions. We've already mentioned that I started directing in Labs. So kind of being very much a part of all of those communities. Labs have an active youth chorus from age 7 up to 29. So slightly different definition of youth compared to Sweet Adeline, but we'll go with it. It doesn't make me feel quite so old. And yeah, so the role was originally, as you know, held by, not originally, but the last iteration, held by your tenor, Boo.
Yeah.
And she directed both the full chorus, which is 7 to 29, and the over 18s competition chorus. And when Boo very rightly said, that's enough for me right now, they actually broke that role down into separate roles. So I direct the full chorus, so that is the 7 to 29-year-olds. And I was appointed their director at the end of last year, end of 2019. 2019 was a busy year for me,
Yes.
as 2018 was for you. And I had my first rehearsal with them. I think it was the 1st of February. So we had a workshop day actually with Nightfall, my quartet. So Nightfall gifted a song to the youth chorus, and we spent the day working on them with it and with another song as well, and did a little mini performance to parents at the end, which was really lovely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was amazing. I mean, I'd sung with the youth chorus a couple of times previously. I'd never been a sort of regular member because I do too much other stuff, but I'd sung with them for convention a couple of times. And yeah, it was really just lovely to be back in that atmosphere. There's such a nice chorus. There's none of the kind of politics and stuff that you get in adult choruses. Everyone's just there because they love singing. And that was a really lovely day. Great actually to have the support of Nightfall on my first rehearsal with them, because I didn't feel quite so much pressure of being thrown into a room of children and having to know what I was doing. So we had Nightfall as section leaders for that day, and that worked really well. And then we had one more rehearsal at the start of March before lockdown. So I actually have only had 2 days with them in person with me out front. So yeah, again, a strange thing to adapt to. With Zoom, we weren't due, because of the way the chorus works, we were originally only due to have 4 rehearsals during the year leading up to performing at the Labs convention. So we weren't due to meet over the summer. But we decided to put some virtual rehearsals in because we were conscious that, young people were off school at the time, and all their friends and hobbies had been taken away. So we wanted to give them something to kind of have that continuity and keep that social engagement as well. So we have been running Zoom rehearsals. It's been really fun actually. And I think I learned quite early on with the youth chorus, something you were talking about with Viva, about thinking about what you can do and taking off the pressure. It's not about what you achieve with this song that you're working on for a particular sing out or competition. It's just about getting them engaging, having fun, and making music. So we have focused a lot more on silly warm-ups and games, and we've started rehearsal with a Disney sing-along while everyone's joining. Nice. We had Pets Corner, all sorts of things. But yeah, it's been great.
Brilliant. So in the kind of in wanting to get to know each other better, can you tell us a little bit about your outside of barbershop time? So I guess what's your job like, and what's this year been like for you outside barbershop?
I was about to say what outside of barbershop, but then I realised that I probably do have a bit more this year than I have done in the past. Normally all my weekends are booked to a barbershop.
Yeah.
So it's been quite strange having that taken away this year, actually. And there's, as you say, there's only so much you can recreate on Zoom.
Yeah.
So my day job is I am an events and communications manager for a small education charity. We work with a range of secondary schools across England called UTCs, which are technical schools for basically key stage 4 and 5. I think that's right. Oh, I mess up key stages. I shouldn't have said that. Basically, years like
right.
10 to 13. Some of them start a bit earlier. But sort of GCSE years and A-level years. But with working with employers who see skills shortages in their industries, and they want to work with schools to equip young people with those technical and academic skills early on, employability skills. So that's been quite strange as well, because as an events manager, I would normally be, going up and down to London and arranging all these in-person conferences and dinners and things, and none of that can happen.
Oh.
I think it's very much similar to the barbershop world, to be honest.
Yeah.
Doing as much as possible online, on Zoom, making use of breakout rooms, and yeah, and then a few of the things that we couldn't run virtually, we pushed back 6 months and then pushed back another 6 months, and we're still hopeful.
Yeah.
We were meant to have a big anniversary celebration, 10-year anniversary celebration last year with people from all over the country, and that's obviously not feasible
Yeah.
and sensible at the moment. So we live in hope that that will happen next year. So that's work stuff. Outside of work, it was all barbershop. But actually, this year, I've just actually bought my first house. You were getting a little
Yay!
preview of my brand new living room here,
Yeah.
which is very exciting. And one of the reasons that I moved north so that I could afford to buy a house.
So you moved in lockdown? Well,
Not quite. Well, everything was
restrictions
sort of
time.
yeah, everything was kind of delayed because of lockdown. So I first had my offer accepted before lockdown. So I viewed it end of February, offer accepted start of March, just in time for COVID.
Yay!
And it all went through in September, and I moved in last month. So yeah, I've been here
Yay!
about a month now,
Excellent.
which is very exciting.
Yes,
And
I've
it
seen a
turns
video
out
tour. It's
that
beautiful.
it turns out that if you pre-lockdown, of course, with all safety measures, but if the weather is too bad for your quartet to sing outside, it turns out that it's great if they come over and help you paint instead.
Excellent.
Yeah, and what about you, Helen? You've been, I know you work in the arts, so
Yes.
furloughed for a bit,
No,
or
actually,
just
haven't
shorter
been
hours
luckily
for a
not been
while?
furloughed. I've had a number of colleagues who have been. So I work in a classical music venue in London called Wigmore Hall, and it's a chamber music venue. And it's kind of a bit of a world-renowned venue. It's a really awesome place to work. I love it. But of course, it completely shut down when lockdown did. We had to close our doors, and all our concerts got cancelled. And we have some 500 concerts and events a year, so that's a lot of cancellations and things that have had to kind of stop. But the director of our hall is a bit of a kind of a bit of a trailblazer in chamber and classical music world in general, and because we have a series that we run with BBC Radio 3, we're already set up for digital broadcasts, and we also already have an amazing tech team that are all set up to do videos and live streams. So actually, in June, when performances were allowed to happen again behind closed doors, we got straight on it and we did a 4-week run of lunchtime concerts, and we managed to get some of the best artists in the UK to come and perform and kind of get artists working again, which was really awesome. At this point, we were on a skeleton staff because most of my colleagues were still on furlough, so it was quite a busy summer. And then because that went down so well, we actually launched an autumn series, a sort of newly revamped autumn series, because obviously we'd already announced this season but couldn't go ahead with it. And we've had artists from all over the world actually have managed to come, although many of them have had to quarantine for 2 weeks before they perform. We have actually managed to get an incredibly busy and sometimes stressful and sometimes quite intense, but a really wonderful autumn series going. So we have live streamed every single concert, and sometimes that's 2 a day, so it has been mad. So we've been kind of taking it in turns to do a lot of digital stuff. And my normal job is my job title is print production administrator, but I essentially put together all our promotional materials like brochures and diaries and all that kind of thing. That's all not happening at the moment because we're not doing any kind of physical print. So I've actually been kind of taking on loads of other jobs that have become a thing since
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, since the live
Your
stream started.
job title doesn't change, but the content changes dramatically.
Yes, absolutely. So I've been doing a lot of language work, making song texts in French and German and all sorts, and various things I never thought I would be doing when I took on this job, but actually I've really enjoyed it. We've launched a whole new concert management system, which is only possible actually because we've had time to dedicate to it while we've not been doing our normal jobs, which is really cool. So yeah, work's been great but busy, and there have been spans of 1, 2, 3 months at a time where I've been part-time, and luckily during that time the British barbershop world came to the fore and were incredibly supportive, and actually did a lot of commissioning of teach tracks, which is a little kind of side hustle that I do.
They're great, by the way.
Thank you. I managed to fill some of that time, in that void in time and salary, with teach tracks, which has been brilliant. And then I guess outside that, I, similarly to you, outside of barbershop and work is just not really a place that existed before 2020. But
that's not strictly true though, because you have been planning a wedding.
Yes, that's the other thing. So we've been planning our wedding, which was supposed to be in March 2021, and like many couples around the country, we have actually postponed now to 2022. But we are planning 2 weddings because we're still getting married on the original date with a little tiny ceremony, so we're double wedding planning now.
Yay!
But we've got a bit more time to plan for the big one and hopefully have everybody there. So there's been some goodish news about vaccinations this week, so I'm kind of hoping 2022
cross fingers and touch wood.
Yeah, everything you can possibly do. Yeah. So that's outside of barbershop at the moment. Yeah.
Hearing you talk about your work has just made me really miss my previous jobs. So I used to work straight out of uni. I went to work for an orchestra, and then I worked for a music publisher for Stadium Music for a few years when I first found Barbershop actually. So yeah, it's lovely hearing all those.
I am one of those weird music graduates that actually got a job in music after uni, which is...
I'm one of those philosophy graduates who, did it because, of course, it doesn't lead to any possible career.
Okay, shall we finish with like quick fire rounds?
I think we might actually be very short on time.
Quick fire answers.
Quick fire answers. Oh gosh, what have you got for
What's your go-to afterglow drink?
Gin.
Oh, white wine for me.
Oh, well, gin is, I don't know if I should be saying this on here, gin is much easier to smuggle
now
in a water bottle.
My backup is rum and coke.
Gin looks surprisingly like water when it's in a bottle. You just have to remember to dilute it, otherwise you have a very big hangover the next day.
Very strong bottle of water. Okay, are there any traditional convention rituals you can't do without?
It depends which group I'm with. The one that springs to mind is Nightfall. And so when I left Green Street Blues, we had a bit of an ongoing thing. When every year I competed with Green Street Blues, they gave me a different present. The first of which was a Wonder Woman apron. So they described me as their Wonder Woman, and then the following year they knew that I'd always wanted to be a Sweet Ads international quartet champion and wanted a tiara, so they gave me a Wonder Woman headband. And when I left them, they gave me some Wonder Woman knickers. So I wore those, and this is probably way too much information. I wore those when Nightfall competed in May last year and won Region 31. So they're now my lucky Nightfall knickers.
Nice.
And we also were sent... What I love about choruses is they provide such a supportive community for their competing quartets. And Heartbeat actually do this lovely thing. I think they called it Bags of Love, where they put together little gift bags for their competing quartets prior to contest with good luck messages and treats and all sorts of stuff in there. And one of the Heartbeat members gave us a little pot of stars. each, and a spell for success. And we thought in May, why not give it a go? We'll take any luck we can get. So yeah, I think we might make that a tradition as well.
Yes, yeah. It might have worked, it might be the
Who
reason.
How about you?
James and I will always go to a convention a day early because we need a bit of time calm before
Standard.
the storm.
Yeah.
So we'll always go for, if unless the weather's awful, we'll always go for a walk the day before when we arrive.
And hopefully not every year, but last year you got engaged on that walk, I believe.
Yes, it was that very walk. Yes, the day before labs that he proposed, which was wonderful. We have our favourite places we have to go and eat, depending on which convention centre you're at. Like, you have to go to Betty's if you're at Harrogate.
Of course.
You have to go to Harry Ramsden's if you're in Bournemouth. I've also got a favourite chippy in Llandudno.
Nice.
I've got to admit, though, that, a lot of people have their, like, routines with diets and things. Between the semi-finals and the finals the year that Avalon won, we went to McDonald's and we ate McFlurries and we forgot all about any kind of diet, and it still went fine. So
sometimes I think that kind of relaxation is better for you than any of those diets.
Absolutely, 100%.
Particularly with contest nerves.
Yes, we do also, if it makes you feel any better about mentioning the Wonder Woman pants, we also have magic knickers. Yes, they're the ones that have the magnet built in for Boo's pitch pipe, so she has to wear them over anything else that she's
Claire
wearing.
has a pair of those.
But it has been utterly wonderful catching up with you, Ross.
You too. It's been so lovely chatting. I was really looking forward to this, just for a chance to catch up with you as much as recording it for everybody else.
It's been so
we should probably say goodbye to everyone. I mean, we may have talked too much and she might chop it off, but bye everyone. Thanks
Bye
for
everybody.
listening.
Thanks for tuning in if you did and got
Stay
this
safe,
far.
everyone.